Thank you, Praveen. Good morning, everyone. Very good morning. Hope all of you are awake. We'll have a very good discussion. We have our esteemed panel. Praveen has already done the introduction, so we'll straight jump into questions. I'll set a little bit of context. I've been tracking this industry for almost 15 years now. We are seeing a lot of action in last 5 years, especially. I mean, before that, I always used to wonder what is really stopping India to put petrochemicals, why aren't refineries not getting into it? And I'm seeing a lot of action that, and we have so many more projects that are being planned for next 5 years. The growth has been strong in last 5 years. I mean, among all the global major economies, petrochemical, everyone is looking at India from a demand perspective. China has slowed down quite a bit, and the Western world anyway, has been growing slowly. But what has interestingly changed over the last 2.5 years is that the margins have slumped quite a bit. So after the peaks of 2022, where all the petrochemical players made a lot of margins, things are looking a little bit tough. So that's the background in which we are, operating, and we will need to operate at least in the near future. And with that, I'll get into the questions. First, maybe Gaurang, I'll get started with you. I mean, we have been on strong growth trajectory over last 5 years in India in petrochemicals. And, according to various reports, we almost need one cracker every year to even make sure that we don't grow the exports, not, grow the imports, not eliminate imports. How do you see this panning out over next 5 to 10 years? What do you see the trajectory to continue, or you see any changes?
Thank you for the question, and thanks organizers for having me here. This is a question that's something quite close to my heart, because when we talk about petrochemicals, we have seen historically petrochemical growth has been linked to around 1.3 to 1.5 times of GDP growth rate. And for developing countries like India, right, where we have sky is the limit, and we are eyeing for 5 trillion, 10 trillion economy in the coming years. So, and the average forecast for the GDP is also ranging from 6 to 7%. So there's a lot of scope. And if I talk about the petrochemical polymer consumption, right? So global average stands around 38 kg per capita, where in India it is around 13 kg per capita. So there is a huge gap that we can see. And in future, there is a lot of scope. At present, the entire petrochemical segment stands around 51 billion. And that is, through various reports, various analysis, it is quite visible that number is expected to grow about 350 billion by 2040. Right. And as of now, if I talk about what is the latest development being taken place, globally we have seen that PDH is emerging around the world. China is stepping in very quickly in the PDH segment. In India also, a couple of plants related to PDH are coming. GAIL India Limited is coming up with PDH plant, Petronet LNG is coming up. So in the propylene segment, that will be the game changer, I think. And as you rightly said, a lot of capacity is required, and a lot of deliberation over the feedstock choice is also under the consideration, because in today's era, when entire energy segment is going through a rapid change, so you have to see, because once the capacity you are getting from the refineries and for the standalone crackers like gas crackers, so you have to make a proper balance, because fuel demand is going to decrease, because it is expected by 2040 even MS and HSD demand will peak in India. So things have to plan accordingly, considering what is happening outside the world, what is happening in the country as well. Thank you.
Maybe I'll add something. Hello. Yeah, maybe I'll add something additional. See, I had conducted a study about 10 years back on the feedstock in which India is falling deficit. So some of those petrochemicals were acrylates, aniline, ethylene oxide, fatty alcohol, any of that's for the oleochemicals, and, oxoalcohol, phenol, propylene oxide, toluene. Now, out of these list of nearly 7 to 8 petrochemical products, so what is the status now? Because in acrylates, we have seen that in South we have a plant which has come up by BPCL, and there are other manufacturers who are eyeing this product. In phenol, alkyl phenol, we have seen that there was 2 small players about 10 years back. One has now shut down, and one big player has come about 6-7 years back. Now I'm in Haldia. So in Haldia, we are also going to put up a phenol acetone plant with the state-of-art Lamas technology. And it's 350,000 tons of phenol and about 220,000 tons of acetone. So overall, some 570,000 tons of phenol acetone. We are going to come up in the next year's time, somewhere around this time. So over there, we have seen that when you have this capacity, then that automatically spurts the demand. Because when you have the mother plant, then all the ancillary units, they get developed on the downstream unit. Similarly, in propylene oxide, there's not much investment done. Toluene, in fact, India is too short of toluene. It is more than 500,000 tons of toluene shortage now, with only one major player coming up, and then it's all some refineries and the steel industries which are in the toluene. Some of the chemicals we are still hugely short, like methanol, about 3 million tons, acetic acid of million tons. So there's an opportunity in some of these chemicals in which we can grow faster. And with the growth of nearly 7%, so every 10 years time, it's going to double. So whatever the shortfall is there, in toluene, it's 500,000 ton. If no capacities come up, it will be 1 million ton some 7 to 8 years down the line.
Thank you, Debashish ji. Moving on, Nilesh, I'll come to you. India demand, as we are hearing, remains strong, but what we are seeing globally is there's a lot of overcapacity. China has put down, to some estimates, about 20 million tons of PDH capacity in last 3-4 years. So propylene is already super excess. Even we are seeing that in ethylene. So given this, where global is excess, India is short, there's energy transition we talked about. How are players like BPCL, IOCL, etc., how are they thinking about? If you can share some view from your organization point of view, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Sudeep. Good morning, all. The problem is there, but then the problem gives the opportunity. The challenges give us the scope to be innovative. So this is one challenge. But if I see the overcapacity is typically for the main 6 building blocks of the petrochemical, starting with the ethylene, propylene, butadiene, B, T, X. These are the major overcapacity that we see, maybe from the China, from the Middle East region, Europe side. But the China, as we see, is actually the overall model was built on some of the relaxations in the environmental regulations, which they are now really strengthening or really contracting. So there's a lot of pressure to perform on that level. The labor cost, which was they used to have a comfortable labor cost at the minimum, now they are actually crossing maybe 7 to 8 times what they used to enjoy before 2020. Another thing, there is a lot of relocation of the hazardous industries that is happening between China to the safe parks. So that is also a big toll on their economy. Another thing, added thing, is the latest US-China trade-off. So there's a lot of pressure, and people are looking for alternatives now. So now, for the Europe market also, if you see the Taiwan, Japanese, those are old sub-capacity the petrochemical complexes, where they are seeing pressures because of the decarbonization, energy transitions. Those now economic pressures are coming. So now the overall overcapacity is now moving towards the rationalization or moving towards the flattening out. And then there is a bigger scope for the country like India and the companies like PA or companies which are actually going ahead to invest in the petrochemical. There is a bigger opportunity. And for me, I firmly believe India is not at all an opportunistic country. which actually finding out his own way. We are no more of followers. We are finding ways to make our own path so that others can follow. So on that growth trajectory, if I see, now this can be backed up by the bigger story, like we are now the fourth biggest economy in the world. We have surpassed Japan, and maybe in a few couple of years we'll be surpassing Germany also, and then we'll be only left behind China and US. So basically this overcapacity is giving an opportunity. I think we'll overcome that. Of course, because of the overcapacity of the dumping post-2020, there is a pressure on the margins. Yes, I understand, but always I believe it's a cyclic nature, the petrochemical business. We have seen some peak in 23 is not going down. Maybe the cyclic nature is for 3 to 5 years. It may not be 3 years for this particular cycle, it may be 5 years. So if I see by 28, 29, 30, it has to come to its peak now again, and will release all those margins. Now this refinery are planning for the energy transition also, but I take it as an opportunity there also, because energy transition is what? Natural gas, electrification, then carbon capture, the green hydrogen, etc. But this, whatever we are learning in the refining sector, the oil and gas sector, same can be replicated across the petrochemical sector. And we have got that advantage to just get it leveraged to the petrochemical sectors. I see opportunity there also. For the margins, if I see, typically our management consultant has given us a hint that it will be like the crude prices, which is our primary feed source, the raw material source, around the $70 range. So we see like 60 to 70 is a good what you call the limit for the crude to hover around where we can be economic. That is the important thing. And then with lot of investment that is coming in from the Indian refineries, we are always thinking of tightly integrated. Or whenever I see this, it's like always that you stay united and you have the power. Like all your sections of the petrochemicals have to stay together, integrated, tightly integrated. It will have all the leverages from the energy transition, energy cost, then the marketing, logistic, distribution, everything will be there. So now government is also supporting us, which was like the petrochemical hubs, where all these elements, not even my company elements, but the other downstream elements also present there, so that we'll have a good economy to prosper. So all in all, and then PCPIRs, the productivity link incentives, the government schemes, which are really going to help us in the longer term when I see 2030, 2040. And government is all together like 2047 Atmanirbhar Bharat. So basically we are moving towards that. Government always supporting us, and they will support us. And with our own initiatives, with our own innovations, I know we'll be excelling. Thank you, Sudeep.
Thank you, Nilesh. I think one of the things that has helped India to support the domestic production despite feedstock disadvantage is the, duty protection that is on offer, right? I mean, all the domestic petrochemicals is supported by 7.5 to 10% duty protection, which helps a lot. But at the same time, now we are talking about free trade agreements. We signed with UK, but UK is not a big petrochemical producer. But now we are thinking about one with Oman and potentially with a few more petrochemical-rich regions. And with that in context, Debashish ji, would be good to hear your view. How do you see the impact of FTA on domestic petrochemical sector, especially with the countries which might have feedstock advantage?
Yeah, I think that's a very tricky question. I'll just go back into the 90s, in which we had a very huge duty protection of the scale of 100% or more than 100% of import duties across most of the products. From that, we have come way all the down to nearly 7.5%. So majority of duty has been removed. So in the transition time, what has happened that Indian companies have become more nimble-footed. We are more agile. There's a lot of restructuring which is happening within companies, mergers and acquisition. The scale of earlier the crackers, now the whole scale of crackers is not anything less than 1.5 million tons. So in that, Indian companies, both private and public sector, have put a huge capex to build up the world-class facility in manufacturing. So in most of the cases, in spite of reduction of duty, we are still survived. We are still survived for the last 30 years, even after the economy opened up. Now, especially in the Gulf countries in which there's a feedstock advantage. Now, in some carbon molecules, there's a distinct advantage, especially in the C1 and C2 chain. So because over there, like India doesn't have much of crude oil, so it's a distinct disadvantage for India. Similarly, for the lights, C1 and C2, methanol, acetic acid, obviously, there will be shift of imports. Now, let me ask a devil's advocate that if this duty protection is managed at a status quo, if it is increased, so will India manufacture more of methanol? The answer would be probably no. So in that case, one good thing is that if you reduce the duties in some of the products, so imports will be cheaper and India will make some of the finished product. Just take an example of methanol again. Now, majority of the methanol is used in India for the formaldehyde as well as MTBE. Now, formaldehyde again will be used for the plywood manufacture. It may happen whenever you are negotiating a FTA. It's a give and take. It's a win-win situation. So you buy any reduction may partially hit the petrochemical segment, but it may basically augment our exports, maybe in FMCG, maybe in textiles, maybe in the plywood or whatever some decorative industry. Secondly, we are also having multiple FTA, like you mentioned the FTA with Britain. So you get the cheaper imports and then take advantage of the FTA with the European countries in which you can sell the goods. So there's a value addition of maybe 2x, 3x. So the cheaper imports will be offset with the more incremental value chain in the finished products.
Got it.
Maybe I will add one more thing. Apart from C1 and C2, in C3 chemistry, we are more or less balanced because there is no distinct advantage for the Gulf countries because we have seen Haldia is putting up a phenol acetone, the feedstock is totally captive. We don't see the imports coming up from the Gulf countries. The imports are mostly coming up from the South Asian countries. So naphtha crackers have that distinct advantage over the light crackers. C4 butadiene, we have seen India has built up capacity in PBR, SBR. Maybe in ABS, we are still short. It's a matter who builds up the capacity of ABS. C6 benzene, we are already quite long. India exports more than 1 million tons of benzene every year. C7 and toluene, there's a shortage. It's more of a toluene, whatever is being produced by the refineries, that's mostly going into gasoline building, rather toluene as a molecule. C8, paraxylene, anyhow, we have the world-class plants. So we are very, very competitive. So barring C1, in which we have a distinct disadvantage, C2 will say 60-40. 60% disadvantage, 40% advantage. C3 onwards, I think we are safe.
Got it.
Can I just, since he was talking about FTA, I have to add one more point which is going against downstream chemical and petrochemical business is inverted duty structure. While you have duties on the raw material, the finished good comes without duty. So that is also posing another challenge that needs to be looked into. This is one point I just wanted to add.
Got it. Thank you. Let me come to you, Subikash ji. We often hear that, so far the sector has focused on bulk commodities, polyethylenes, polypropylenes, and a lot of downstream intermediates or specialties are completely missing. They are underdeveloped, and variety of reasons are cited, right? Technology barrier in some case, in a lot of cases, availability of building blocks so that, small industries and entrepreneurs can come and set up the downstream. You are coming from an organization which is far more downstream and probably you face some of that. So would be good to hear your views on this and any pragmatic ways to debottleneck some of this.
Yeah, thanks, Sudeep. If I understood your question correctly, it has got two parts. One is building block challenge, the second one is technology challenge. I will take building block challenge first. And when we talk about building blocks or raw material or feedstock, what we call, for downstream products, we always first see the grandfather, that is naphtha. And we all know naphtha, as per the PPSC data, naphtha is surplus in the country. Yes, there are exports and imports happening because of maybe quality issues. But once we crack naphtha, if we go to the next stage of propylene and ethylene, they are mainly controlled by the OMCs and they use it for their own downstream integrations. And as a result, the feedstock which are required for chemical and petrochemical business, specialty chemical business, get ignored many a times. And there we face challenge and inadequacy. See, if I have to take an example, many specialty chemicals and chemicals, and not to forget, before that, not to forget, this business in India is almost 35 to 37 billion dollar potential, having 35 to 37 billion dollar potential, and it's growing at a CAGR of 5 to 7%. So huge business, huge market, and there is a trade deficit. That is also quite huge. I mean, last year data shows almost $22 billion trade deficit existed. So when opportunity is there, growth opportunity is there, demand is there, this industry is not able to grow because of, many a times because of feedstock inadequacy. If I have to take one example of, say, oxo alcohol, which is made from propylene, 50% we get from the country and 50% is imported. So now the question is, what are the challenges or how to overcome these challenges? See, if inadequacy is there, definitely we have to increase the capacity. That is the immediate answer that comes to our mind. One is we may have to go for more cracker and make the downstream products available for the petrochemical and specialty chemical business. Second one is technology upgradation or find alternate route, like everybody talked about PDH. Okay, maybe that's a costlier route, but yes, if the product is not available, we may have to adopt that route. Maybe we have to go for bio-based products, which maybe, I mean, it will not give you the scale, but yes, this can give you an option. And coming to technology part, see, if I do not have knowledge, I have to acquire it. We have to invest a lot on R&D. And why this technology challenge comes? It comes because of very huge license fee and IP protection. And IP, to overcome these two, either we have to get into some kind of JV arrangement or equity infusion. I mean, there are, to my mind, I do not get any other answer. And yes, we have to overcome all these challenges if we really want to reduce the trade deficit in specialty chemicals, because there are various sectors like agri-chemicals, surfactants, this construction chemicals, even your plasticizer market, all these have got very huge growth potential. So if we need to breeze that gap of building block challenge, building block constraint, we have to follow all these paths. Thank you.
Thank you, Subikash. Coming back to you, Gaurang, you know, there is a huge push for self-sufficiency in India, right? I mean, we want to reduce the imports to zero in petrochemicals. But at the same time, as we talked in this panel, you know, in certain chains, we may not be even, you know, best cost country to produce. Two-part question for you. Given this, does it make sense for India to focus on self-sufficiency? Why not continue to import and divert our resources somewhere else? And if the answer is yes, how do you solve some of these feedstock challenges and other things that we talk about?
Yeah, very tricky question, I would say. Yeah, self-sufficiency is always desired. But I think for this case, we must add some different interpretation to this, right? Because if you talk about India for crude oil and gas, right, around 85% crude oil is being imported, 55% gas is being imported. But still, India is like fourth largest refineries, and we are exporting some of our finished product as well, right? So this is the point that we should inculcate in our behavior, that when we talk about self-sufficiency, then we must convert the entire thing into the opportunity, right? As Mr. Jena has rightly talked about the inverted duty. For the petrochemical segment, this is also the case, because sometimes there is a high duty on the imported building blocks, right? And less duty on the finished products. So we are importing finished products. So rather than, if the duty can be, because some of the southeastern countries we can see, the duty on the building blocks is very less and finished product is high. So if that given the case, then you can boost the domestic production. And talking about the Indian context, like a lot of things are happening since we are rich in coal. So Ministry of Coal is also planning some coal gasifications. And when that thing will come into the picture, then things would be somewhat different, because we have planned for production of methanol, DME as well. Once DME is produced, the DME can be blended with the LPG. That will also reduce some LPG demand. That is being around 60% of LPG is being imported as of now. So that is the case. And when we talk about for self-sufficiency in the petrochemical segment, so it's totally not about being feedstock rich. It's just about being feedstock smart, right? Because as I talked about the energy transition in the country, by the time like fuel demand is going to decrease, so you're already having some surplus naphtha, right? So that refinery and petrochemical integration can be very prudently designed. So that can help to fill this gap. So a lot of things is happening. So that's what I told. This is a quite tricky question. Thank you.
Thank you. I think keep continuing the feedstock theme. We hear a lot about biofeedstocks. So many reports are out that India can solve a lot of feedstock problem because of the rich agri industry and the resource we have in the country. Yet when I see, it has been far and fewer. There are technology challenges, there are commercial challenges. And related to that, my question to you, Subikash ji, how do you see biofeedstock playing part, in the overall petrochemicals? Do you think this is a major force, or will it be few select products and chains where it makes sense? Would be good to hear your view.
Yeah, thank you. Though I talked about this as an alternate feedstock, but what I can see, this comes as a compulsion, not because of by choice at times. See, chemical and petrochemical, they are very vast fields. There are many products. If I have to answer this question, let me narrow down to one of the chemical products, say the business where I am in currently, say plasticizers. Of late, there are many challenges we are facing when we go and market plasticizers. See, people are talking about phthalate-free plasticizers because of various health concerns. Similarly, if we talk about secondary plasticizers, there also people are talking about reducing paraffin with short chain and mid chain carbons, because all these pose health hazards, not only health hazards, also environmental concerns. So when we have such concerns, we have to always look for alternate routes. So there are few ways, maybe at a very early stage, but people have started doing. In India also, people have gone for bio-based feedstocks in a large way. I'm talking about chemicals and petrochemicals. I'm not talking about petroleum industry, where it is going on for several years. So if you see now ethylene, we talked about there is a challenge. So maybe bio-based ethanol is one route which can give us ethylene. Similarly, just little while ago, Mr. Sudeep talked about palm oil and all. Palm oil, even soybean oil for that matter. The soybean oil, in fact, is has already entered into plasticizer business. I mean, we have started producing epoxidized soybean oil, which is replacing fossil-based plasticizers. So these are a few things which are coming, even lactic acid, even adipic acid. Adipic acid maybe, I mean, which we are getting, if I'm not wrong, right, currently through benzene, maybe find another alternate source of fermentation of glucose. I mean, these are few things which are coming up. I will not be able to comment on the scales at which it will really impact, but yes, they will make inroads, and maybe they will also face few headwinds in the form of their raw material, that is bio-based raw materials, and one more challenge which may come also is in the form of cost. Because what we have seen of late, these bio-based products are costlier than fossil-based products. Thank you. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah. No, thank you, Subikash. Changing the theme a little bit, I mean, petrochemical sector so far in India has largely developed through licensing of technologies. There are very few of them which we have developed in the country. We hear about the China story, and I mean, they have pretty much indigenized all the technologies in petrochemicals, and that's something I guess we are lacking behind. Nilesh, maybe if you can weigh in, I mean, what have you seen in last 5 years? Are we on the right trajectory as far as this R&D, innovation, technology development goes? And you know, if you can also touch upon what are the bottlenecks and what can be ways and means to, you know, push this agenda in the country.
For me, R&D and innovation, there's like brother, sister, like the innovation to happen, the R&D has to be there, and for R&D, innovation is important, and that has to come out of it. Another thing, we are like last 5 years, we have been seeing a very turmoil atmosphere outside. It started with the corona, then it was continued by Russia, Ukraine, and then suddenly there is a war everywhere in the world. So everything is under pressure. So basically, this gives a need to innovate, and basically need is the mother of the innovations. So let's start from that basic principle. Now we are like finding opportunity everywhere. I'm coming back to my principle, like finding opportunities in every aspect of the business. So we are everywhere. Now we have to just see where I can improvise. R&D typically for Indian companies, R&D is typically 0.6 to 2% on the revenue. Whereas for the big global players, it can be as high as 8 to 10%. So the first impetus that we have to give is to increase our budgets, and may not be on a like say BPCL. BPCL may not go alone. It can be a conglomerate like that. Entities coming together, they are doing together some research work. So that will give a benefit of the cost for the research. So that is one aspect I see. Then basically I will move towards the sustainability, because when I say innovation, when I say R&D, I'll be driving towards the sustainability. For me, sustainability, something, the 3 aspects which I need to sustain. First one is the safety. Safety nahi to kal se plant ban, industry ban. Second is the environment. If I'm not protecting environment within the limits, I'm out. I cannot survive. And third is obviously my margins, my money, my productivity. Because without that also I cannot sustain. So sustainability always on these 3 pillars I will be measuring. So to be sustainable, I need to have some pillar or some levers to maneuver. One of them I see now is the digitalization. digitalization for the sustainability, right from the product design, maybe the LCA, lifestyle assessment, then overall circularity, that also you can maneuver, you can monitor and control, okay, and then the productivity, the efficiency involved with it, the overall supply chain, right from start to end and back to start. So that overall supply chain you should be able to digitalize and make it more leaner so that we survive, we sustain on a longer basis. And of course, the overall circularity of the things. So, the distribution and the logistics related to the things. So overall digitalization has come up in the long way. The R&D has to go there also. The innovation aspect has to come up there also. And the biggest thing, like Gaurang was also mentioning about the feedstock. I feel sustainability will be more related to the feedstock and the processes involved to produce the petrochemical building blocks and hence all the chemicals. Now, the feedstocks, if I see, right now, the Indian context, if I see, since we are like opportunity for India, we are concentrating upon, the feedstocks are like typically gas crackers, if you see. Which cracker you have? I have a gas cracker. Which cracker you have? I have a naphtha cracker. These are the two typical things. Now, what are the other options there? Do we really need to innovate? Yes. Because the countries like US or the countries like Middle East, which are actually sitting on the standard gas, they are making good business because of the standard gas economy. Okay, but once you start getting through the ship that gas to us and then process to ethylene and the downstream polymers, it's not going to be a feasible thing as of now. Okay, now like getting something from the ship, ethylene also, and making the downstream from importing, that is also not a feasible business. So basically, currently, India, you see, it is basically at the center of the production cost curve. It is at the center. We are making our own naphtha, we are tightly integrated with refineries, we are making our own naphtha, our feedstock, and we are enjoying a good these things. Those who are standalone actually are bleeding. If you can see other companies, the statements, then they're bleeding. So integration is the thing. You have to be right size, with that flexible, but integrated. That will survive you, sustain you, all the safety, reliability, and the productivity. Should I continue on the sustainability also?
Sure, go ahead.
So, basically, for me, sustainability, if I said with the feedstock, then what is the sustainability on the feedstock? I should be able to process ethane, LPG, or whatever the gases I have, all the liquids, including heavy. And after that, what is that will make me this thing? The circular economy. I have got a plastic recycling. In India, the recycling rate is hardly 8%. If you go to the Europe is around 40 to 80% of the recycle rates are there. In fact, Belgium releases around 80 to 90% of the recycle rates. We can go to that level. China even is 20 to 25%. US is maybe around 8. So we have a long way to go. But if we actually grow on that path also, then how do you integrate again back to the petrochemical business? That is also something we have to ponder upon at this stage. So, we have the feedstock which is ready for the future. If you make pyrolysis oil of the plastic, you should be able to get it back to the feedstocks of the cracker and get it to the polymers. That is one thing. Another thing will be the renewable plastic, biodegradable plastic, the PLA, the PHA, bioethylene. We got a lot of scope for ethanol. Maybe we are talking about the ethanol blending up to 20%. After that, what? Like government is working to increase that. But parallelly, we are also working on ethanol to ethylene, and then biopolyethylene, biopropylene, and biopolymers. So that route is also there, which is sustainable in nature. If I have to take an example of BPCL, because since I am from BPCL, I'll take a good example. Like with whatever you talk, our cracker, say we are expanding heavily. We already have some niche petrochemical products at Kochi refinery. We are expanding with the polypropylene at the Kochi. Bina refinery, we are going at 2.2 MMTPA of petrochemicals. Andhra Pradesh refinery, we are coming up 3.2 MMTPA petrochemicals. But the good thing about the BPCL, this thing, we are trying to be future ready. What do I mean by that future readiness? My feedstock, my cracker at Bina, whenever I have designed it, it is ready to take from ethane to LPG to fuel gas to naphtha to kerosene to diesel to heaviers. This is the huge flexibility I have created. If I say 2030, 2040, the oil is going to get peak out. say 104 MBD, it is going to peak out. I don't have a maybe customer for the diesel, I can crack it. I got this thing ready today. That readiness is there. Ethane, I can crack up to 40% in the same configuration. I am ready for cracking ethane if it is favorable. In fact, we are in talks with one party which can give me a ethane. So I can go up to 40%. Naphtha, I can go from 40 to 70% if required. I can import, I can generate more with the configuration, the crude changes, etc. If diesel picks out, I will process diesel and heavy stuff. If pyrolysis oil sometime back comes back, then I'm ready. Instead of that heavy stuff of the refinery, I can take that pyrolysis oil and crack it. So that is readiness. Decarbonization, whichever refinery is coming up, they are ready with the decarbonization aspect, the carbon sequestration, how I can be ready, the electrical furnace in the crackers, because these are the energy guzzlers. The cracker furnace are actually 5 to 6 times, if based on the configuration, can be the more energy consumers. But that again lies with us, how to reduce that CO2 emission. So we are ready for that. If it comes, it becomes economical, I'll be ready to switch over to that mode. Electrical furnaces, it is happening somewhere in the pilot plants. BPCL is working on also on the electrical furnace for the crackers. So that is going to come, like we are like future savvy, and we are investing into that, assuming that everything will fall in place, and there is some sort of flexibility also in that. Now, in Bina refinery, we expanded from 8 to 11. 3 million we have increased. Where it has gone? Has it gone to the refinery? We talk about crude to chemicals. My cracker feedstock is 3 million. So for me, it's like 100% conversion. And then I can switch over also. The beauty of it, I can switch over like 50% and then get into the refinery, products, fuels, if required 100% to the chemicals. Same we are working with the Andhra Pradesh refinery. So that flexibility, that sustainability over the long period is going to give me the margins. And that way I'm going to excel.
Thank you, Nilesh. Maybe in the interest of time, last question for the panel. I'll go to Debashish ji. Net zero and sustainability, we have been talking that in oil and gas sector, both upstream, downstream, petrochemicals. We saw a lot of announcements in last 2-3 years, both in Western worlds as well as in India, of net zero plans by 2040, 2050. I'm seeing that slowing down, in last 2 years, both in Western worlds and India, and I also see the action to be a lot more slower than the announcements. Would be good to get your thoughts. 2-3 parts to that question. Is it feasible? How fast? Who will pay for it? How should we think about short, medium, and long term when it comes to net zero and sustainability?
Yeah, in fact, yesterday there was some short session on the sustainability, and it was basically found out that now the question is not why, we have to do it. And also, as per the 2023 Paris Agreement, it is a way forward. That is the basic guidelines that have been set. Unfortunately, after Donald Trump became the president this year, he just jettisoned this Paris Agreement, and but still, now we have got the momentum to way forward for the last 10 odd years. In fact, 20 years back, when you used to meet the customers, especially from Europe, they used to ask me that whether you have some chief sustainability officer. So I used to be a bit surprised, what is this? So now all the Indian companies are well aware of the sustainability. In fact, many of the non-listed companies are also publishing their sustainability report, though it's not mandatory to publish their sustainability report. So that shows the Indian companies, how they are aware of this. Earlier used to be jargon, now it's more or less becoming mandatory, taking of their own. Having said that, I'll talk about Haldia Petrochemicals. Now, Haldia, we are the flagship company of the Chatterjee Group. We are the largest petrochemical company in the east side of India, having a naphtha cracker of 700,000 tons, and we make polymers, both polyethylene and polypropylene, about 300,000 tons each of LLDP, HDP, and polypropylene, so about 1 million tons of polymers, and then about 500,000 tons of the allied chemicals like butadiene, benzene, MTB, and all. Having said that, and now we are augmenting into the phenol acetone plant. We will be using the captive benzene as a feedstock for phenol acetone, and we are also coming up with the olefin conversion unit in which we will be converting some of the C2s and C4s into C3s, and that will be a captive feedstock for the upcoming phenol acetone. Having said that, on the sustainability, that we recognize the urgency and strategic importance of a low carbon future. And in fact, we have a dedicated ESG team working on develop and implement sustainable solution towards environmental conservation. Now, a few bullet points what our company has done in the last couple of years. We have set up a 1 megawatt solar power plant about 4 years back. And we are using more than 8.7 lakh meter cube of raw water, the rainwater harvesting, what we have implemented in 2024, 23, 24. And that's why we are conserving the fresh water, nearly 9 lakh meter cube of water. We have planted nearly 1.25 lakh trees across the green belt in our plant. In fact, we are implementing pipeline for the coal conveyor. So when we are getting the coal from the jetty to the plant, now we are converting that rather from the trucks, we are going to have a pipeline that is under implementation. We are also targeting 50% of the treated effluent that we are going to top up in our cooling tower by December 2026, and maybe in the next 5 years' time, by 2030, we should be a zero liquid discharge. And being one of the major polymer producers in India, about a million ton of polymers, we adhere to the EPR as per the regulatory guidelines. So these are the initiatives what we have taken, and we have also done a lot of process engineering in which the total energy we are there is a reduction of about 1%, some 29,000 trillion joules. We are now at 28,500, something like that. So around 1% reduction. So that is nearly 300 trillion joules of energy conservation what we have done by the engineering and energy reduction initiatives. So these kinds of implementation, I think the other companies can also have it and then conserve the energy.
Great. Thank you, Debashish. With that, we would like to close this panel. I would ask all the audience to applaud for the panelists for sharing their views, and thank you.